Not too long ago, I released a video ranking my top 5 biggest disappointments of 2019, but fortunately it was a much more positive and much more surprising year. So now I'm going to talk about my top 10 most surprising movies of 2019. Hello everyone, I hope you're having a cinematastic day. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema, and before we get into my top 10 biggest surprises of 2019, I'd love to hear what your biggest surprises were down in comments below. And of course, this isn't the right list, this is just my list, and it's also just the movies that I had lower expectations for than what I received out of it. When I watched the movie, it exceeded those expectations, gave me more than I wanted and expected from it. And if you haven't already, make sure to check out that top 5 biggest disappointments. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss on my top 10 best movies of 2019. Just a couple honorable mentions before we begin. First up, we have the Addams Family, and despite it having some jokes that played off too long, just some other things that it felt unrealistic and kind of weird about it, but the development it had within its characters were surprisingly interesting, and I loved the take on what they did with the villain. It felt like something different, and it wasn't all that bad. I quite enjoyed it for what it was. And another honorable mention would have to be Rambo Last Blood. It wasn't a great movie, but overall, like, the whole scheme of things, how things play out, it was really good. The build up that you really get from Rambo, the development of his character from what you got left off with in Rambo 4, and just the progression of him suddenly turning and then going full Rambo at the end of the movie was just insane. What we received from that. Coming in at number 10, we have Spider-Man Far From Home. This was a blast getting to see this film. I went into it really expecting a good movie because I really enjoy Spider-Man's character and I really enjoy him in the MCU, especially. Tom Holland plays an excellent performance. I really enjoy Spider-Man Homecoming, though it's not in like my top 10 or anything. I just really like this character, and the way it's executed in this movie is so bizarre, so mind-blowing. The twist that you really get in this film, you sort of expect Mysterio and who he ends up being, but the way they execute this is just sort of mind-blowing, and it, being the epilogue of Avengers Endgame, of the Infinity Saga, it's just so emotional. The way they use the arc of Spider-Man and how he goes off becoming the next Iron Man in a sense, yet he's all still his own character, and he's still a high schooler that's dealing with all of these superhero developments, and just the Avengers level threat that's executed within this solo superhero movie is really well done and enjoyable. Number 9, we have Godzilla King of Monsters. The fight sequences were insane. I really didn't mind, and I actually enjoyed from the way it switched back and forth from the broad view, seeing the fight from afar, seeing the actual scale of the battle, to going down to the human perspective, looking up, sort of seeing that shaky camera, almost like the Cloverfield sort of feel to the camera work, and just seeing the height of looking up at that battle, and the way they translated that just worked really well. And I just enjoyed the story overall, the bizarre ideas and the way the humans interacted, and I really enjoyed getting to see the human emotions versus getting to see the story of Godzilla and who he has to fight, who he has to go up against, and it's just really compelling, this story arc that it all goes on. And though some ideas seem so bizarre that it might be unrealistic, it was quite interesting and believable the way everything was executed nonetheless. Coming in at number 8, we have Claws, a Netflix film, and this film, it was just an animated Christmas movie. I just decided that I wanted to watch just a Christmas movie, and it seemed pretty simple, self-explanatory, but it ended up being way better than expected, more complex, and while it sort of still had the same expectations of how the story flows out, it had a unique way of telling the story, and even the animation just seemed random, but really throughout the movie you really buy into the animation, and so a couple of the songs were just really compelling. Just getting to hear those, it was a lot more something I didn't expect from it, and it was just really powerful. Sort of not necessarily the message it goes about, but just the development of having Santa Claus having a character arc. Number 7, we have Steven Universe the movie. I've never seen a single episode of Steven Universe. I've been hearing quite a few good things about Steven Universe the movie. Before going into it, I had it on Access, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the musical aspects of it. Really enjoyed where they took it, how it was developed, and I still bought into the characters just enough. I learned about the characters just enough that I may have missed a lot of Easter eggs, some different character arcs of what happened in the different series compared to what I'm getting as a first time viewer. But I still enjoyed it nonetheless. I still got to understand the characters just enough that I could really buy into what this series was about. But the movie itself was pretty good. And at number 6, we have Alita Battle Angel. This one was, I went into it expecting something really odd because I did hear really good reviews on it, but it just seemed really weird, the animation style. I'm not always into that sort of animated style, but I really enjoyed its execution, the character development. You really buy into the characters, the story, and it has a Star Wars feel and a sci-fi feel that has all these bounty hunters, all of these different culture elements, and just these different games that you really buy into the world of Alita Battle Angel, and it's sort of emotional in some aspects as well, and the animation is really well done, despite being something different than I'm really used to. Number 5, we have Disney's live action Aladdin, and this one seemed weird with the trailers. It sort of brought me into it. I really like the original animated Aladdin, and while this one doesn't quite live up to it, Jafar doesn't quite look anything like he should be. I really enjoyed the casting for Aladdin and for Jasmine and just all the other characters. It was really bought into it, and Will Smith really brought in a big surprise as the genie. He doesn't quite have the energy or something, the same charisma as Robin Williams did in the animated version, but he brought his own twist to the character. He brought his own fun and charisma that you can really buy into. I had a lot of fun seeing him on screen as the live action version, and just the trailers did not buy me into it, but overall the expectations were exceeded, and especially really got dug the new song Speechless. And then at number 4, we have Terminator Dark Fate. I watched the Terminator series for the first time leading up to this movie, and so I got a general idea on how it was playing out, how the story was supposed to go. The trailer looked good. It seemed reminiscent, though, of some of the not so great ones, maybe like 3, a little bit of 4 and 5. It seemed like it could have been playing off some of the same ideas, and while it did end up having that, it had the level of action and the level of fun that came from Terminator 1 and Terminator 2. While it didn't quite get to that level of story, I really enjoyed the arc that they give Terminator and the conclusion to the franchise, and it's just really emotional and compelling the way they really execute that final battle. But even at the end, where you really enjoy that battle, all the way through, you just have a blast. And then at number 3, we have Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. This being a sequel did not really get me excited. I really enjoyed, for the most part, Maleficent, the original. It's an interesting idea of where they are taking Maleficent's character, sort of having sympathy for the villain of the Sleeping Beauty story, but getting a sequel did not sound exciting for me. I never really got excited from the trailers, what you're sort of seeing from them. Seeing more of Maleficent sort of species didn't seem like a super compelling idea, though it seemed like it was worth the watch. And when I did watch it, I was surprised. I really enjoyed it almost just as much as the original or Maleficent, the first movie. And it was just still a lot of fun. There was still the fairy moments that weren't so great. There were still some moments that were just not as quite as good as what I would have hoped for. But overall, it lived up to the original, and I really enjoyed what it was supposed to be and how it was executed, even with the new Maleficent species, where they take her story arc in this one. And at number 2, most surprising of 2019, we have Spies in Disguise. This one came out of nowhere. The trailer never really got me excited for it. The jokes didn't seem to play off in that. The way it was presented in the trailer, for whatever reason, just never really got me excited at all. Nothing really got me into it. There was a couple things that I bought into. It gave me a chuckle in the trailer. But when I went into theaters, I just went in not really expecting much at all, really. I thought it was going to be a good enough for what it was, but the idea that was presented was just so well done, so well presented, and the animation was beautiful. The characters were so well presented in a way that was compelling and really brought me into them. Overall, it was just a huge surprise getting to have this powerful story presented within a mediocre trailer. Coming in at number 1, we have Toy Story 4, and while I wasn't someone that was like completely against the idea of having a fourth one, I really wasn't on board with it either. It sounded really weird. The Toy Story 3 really ended up off the franchise really well, and I didn't fully see why we needed a Toy Story 4, and even the trailers never fully got me excited for it either. I was a bit more excited for it than Spies in Disguise, the expectations wise, but it still never got me on board. But the execution was really well done. It gave me a reason to see why this was being made, to end, like, the first trilogy was to end Andy's story, and now it's to end Woody's story. And it just really played off really well. The animation was really well done and beautiful, almost realistic looking. Seeing this sort of new side of Toy Story going out in the wild, and being the idea of having lost toys and just the empathy you can have for those characters. It didn't have the perfect conclusion from what I had. I thought it would end sort of a different way, but it was very over the top satisfying, and I could just really buy into why they made a Toy Story 4. And that's why it's the number 1 spot of the most surprising movie of 2019. But those were just my picks of the most surprising movies of 2019, and I love to hear yours down in comments below. Make sure to check out that playlist of the 2019 ranking. Soon I'll be getting out my best of 2019, as well as some of the decade rankings, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Make sure to comment down below your picks of most surprising movies of 2019, and I'll be back for more movie reviews, rankings, and more.